My husband told me not to call him during his 15-day business trip, but I discovered he was actually traveling with his side chick. As soon as I confirmed the truth, I canceled his platinum credit card and put our Buckhead mansion up for sale. The next day, I had 66 missed calls from him. He screamed, "Why did you suddenly cancel the card? How am I supposed to get back to Atlanta?" I only said one sentence that left both him and his mistress frozen. As the dusk began to settle, I was arranging the Phalaenopsis orchids on the veranda. That's when my husband, Kellen, emerged, dragging a suitcase toward the entrance. He was still wearing a tailored suit, but his tie was slightly loose. The scent of expensive cologne, tobacco, and the exhaustion of a hard day mixed together, layering over the clean aroma of the orchids I meticulously cared for. After 10 years of marriage, I had become so accustomed to his smell that sometimes I barely noticed it, much like our marriage. He glanced at me, his gaze fleeting. "I'm leaving. This business trip is critical. Some foreign partners are here, and they need a geological survey of the land for a new resort in the Hamptons. We're launching a major new project." His voice was monotone, devoid of emotion or even fatigue. It was a simple notification, like a cold weather forecast. I nodded and stepped closer, pretending to adjust his collar. "Why so sudden? 15 days is such a long time." Kellen instinctively pulled back slightly. It was an almost imperceptible movement of avoidance, but I caught it clearly. "This project is top secret, Zara. You understand? I need to investigate thoroughly, and the information can't leak." He took my hand, but his palm wasn't as warm as usual. He warned me, "For security reasons, don't call or text me for these next 15 days. I'll have my phone off so I can focus. I'll call you as soon as the work is done. I'm leaving the house and the garden in your hands." I smiled. It was the smile I had practiced for the last 10 years, the smile of a wise, understanding wife. "Of course, go do what you need to do. I'll be fine here, so be easy on your business trip." The loud rumble of the suitcase wheels rolling over the tiled floor echoed, followed by the heavy slam of the iron front door. The luxurious Buckhead mansion was plunged into a chilling silence. I stood in the middle of the opulent living room, looking at my reflection in the large window. 10 years ago, I, Zara Ellison, was an ambitious landscape architect with my own brand, Ellison & Cumby Designs. But Kellen insisted, "I need a solid foundation at home." So I gave it all up and retreated to be a true homemaker in this mansion. I designed every corner of the garden, pouring my heart into every bloom. I thought I was nurturing our home, but Kellen's coldness had become more evident over the years. Dinners together at home dwindled, and affection or concern had dried up. He left late and came back late, and the reason was always work. I blamed myself. Did I do something wrong? Or do all marriages wither like this over time? I tried to revive the relationship, but I only met his indifference and sometimes his irritation. Slowly, I grew tired too, and only silence remained in our house. This 15-day business trip and the request for no contact, strangely, instead of worrying me, only made me feel a cold distance that sank into my bones. 3 days after Kellen left, the large house felt unusually empty. I spent most of my time tending to my orchid garden. It was the only piece I could find. The Phalaenopsis orchids, dancing lilies, and purple dendrobiums I had ordered directly from Miami were at their peak. As I carefully wiped each leaf, my phone on the table chimed. I thought it was an ad and ignored it, but a second and a third chime sounded in quick succession. I sighed, took off my gloves, wiped my hands on my apron, and picked up the phone. On the screen were 3 identical bank notifications. My heart sank. They were transaction alerts from Kellen's corporate platinum card, the one I'd given him for work convenience. My gaze fixed on the phrase, $4,500 payment at Sorrel's Table Restaurant. Sorrel's Table. That name was like a needle pricking my eardrum. $4,500? I quickly checked the date and time. The transaction had occurred only 10 minutes ago. With trembling hands, I called the bank's VIP center to confirm. The advisor, after verifying, told me firmly, "Yes, Ms. Ellison, a successful payment of $4,500 has been made at Sorrell's Table Restaurant in Buckhead, Atlanta." Buckhead, the Hamptons. I hung up the phone, and my entire body went cold. The fragrant aroma of the orchids suddenly seemed nauseating and choked me. I remembered Sorrell's Table Restaurant very well. 6 months ago, for our 10th wedding anniversary, I showed Kellen an article about this spot. I practically begged him, "Honey, let's have dinner here for our anniversary. They say it's very romantic and has a beautiful view of the city." At that moment, Kellen, eyes glued to his computer, dismissed me without even looking up. "Don't be ridiculous, Zara. Look at the price. One single meal costs one of my employees' monthly salaries. It's a place where idle, rich folk go just to show off." I tried to explain. "It's only once in 10 years. But he got annoyed. "Don't be extravagant and frivolous. We can use that money for something more useful." His words poured cold water on my expectations. Our 10th anniversary ended with a dinner at home, like any other. I consoled myself. He's right. He's a practical person. He worries about big business, not trivial vanities. But today, my husband, who was supposedly doing a geological survey in the Hamptons, the same person who asked me not to contact him, was at Sorrell's table, paying a $4,500 tab. What client would he be entertaining to be so extravagant? My hands shook, not with rage, but from the chilling cold that rose from my spine to the crown of my head. I had lived in absolute confidence for the last 10 years, or perhaps in a perfectly wrapped deception. I looked at the pure white Phalaenopsis orchid in front of me, beautiful, immaculate petals. But why did they feel so fragile and hypocritical? He lied to me. This single thought was clear, and it stabbed my heart like broken glass. He had deceived me. After the initial tremor came an eerie calm. It's like when a person is seriously injured. The pain comes later, and only numbness remains. I didn't scream or break things. I simply walked into the house and poured myself a glass of ice water. The cold water went down my throat, clearing my mind, and my brain began to function. What should I do? Should I call him immediately and scream, "Where are you? What are you doing?" Only to listen to another more elaborate lie? I hadn't wasted the last 10 years in trust. I couldn't afford to be stupid and waste another second. I needed the truth. I opened my phone's contact list and scanned a multitude of familiar names. Mom? No. My mother has heart issues, and she would worry herself sick. I needed someone with a cooler head, someone who could act. My eyes settled on the name Jada Banks, attorney at law. Jada had been my best friend since we were students at Spelman College. Unlike me, who gave up my career at Ellison & Company Designs to choose family, Jada was single, a smart, independent lawyer who despised hypocrisy. If anyone could help me in this moment, it was only Jada. I called. As soon as it rang twice, Jada answered. Her voice was as cheerful as ever. "What's up, Zara? The lady of the manor suddenly missed her broke friend, or do you have another flower planting project?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice from shaking, but it was still choked. "Jada, are you free now? I need your help." Jada's voice on the other end of the line immediately turned serious. She knew I wasn't kidding when I used that tone. "I'm at the office. What's wrong? Your voice sounds off. What did Kellen, that man, do to you?" "I'm not sure." I tried to piece the fragments together in my head. Kellen said he went to the Hamptons for 15 days. He said it was a top-secret project, and I shouldn't bother him with calls or texts. "Secret about what?" Jada raised her voice. "That stinks. What century is this that it's a secret even from his wife?" I cut her off and got straight to the point. 15 minutes ago, the corporate card I gave him for work was used to pay $4,500 at Sorrell's Table Restaurant in Buckhead. There was silence for a few seconds on the other end of the phone. It was the silence of a lawyer analyzing a case. "Sorrell's Table?" Jada asked. "The French spot you wanted to go to for your 10th anniversary last year, and he called it extravagant?" "Yes, that one." My throat burned. That damn bastard. I told you not to trust your husband too much. $4,500 is definitely an issue. What do you want now? Should I send someone immediately? No. I interrupted her again. At that moment, I didn't need a scandal. I don't want to send anyone. I need the truth. You're a lawyer. You have your methods. Investigate who he's entertaining there. Sorrel's Table is a luxury restaurant. They surely have CCTV or a reservation list. Understood, Jada replied concisely. Send me the card info, your account number, and a clear photo of Kellen. I have contacts there. But Zara, are you really okay? Jada's voice was full of concern. I looked at my orchid garden. The white petals were still there, beautiful. But why did they feel so luxurious and fragile? I don't know, but don't worry. I won't fall apart. I hung up the phone. I knew that from that moment on, my life would never be the same. I don't know how long I sat motionless on the veranda. The sun had set, and only an orange trace remained in the sky, announcing the long night to come. Tonight, the aroma of the orchids was no longer fragrant. It felt nauseating and suffocating. I didn't eat dinner. In the large house, only the regular ticking of the grandfather clock in the living room echoed. Each tick was like a hammer blow on my empty chest. I tried to fool myself. Maybe it really is an important business partner. Maybe it's a female CEO Kellen has to entertain. Maybe $4,500 is just a deposit for a big contract. I tried to cling to that weak hope, but it shattered when my phone rang. It was close to 10 o'clock at night, and I received a WhatsApp message from Jada. It wasn't a text. Breathe deep, sit down in a chair, and then open it. My hands trembled. I told Jada I wouldn't fall apart, but my body was betraying me. I felt the blood drain from my face, and my hands and feet grew cold. I clicked on the video file Jada had just sent. It was only 30 seconds long. The video seemed to have been recorded surreptitiously by a client at another table or extracted from a security camera. The angle wasn't clear, but those 30 seconds were enough to end my 10 years of marriage. It was Kellen. He was wearing the same suit I had pressed for him that morning. He had taken off his jacket and looked relaxed. He was sitting in the luxurious, classic space of Sorrel's Table, and he wasn't alone. Across from him sat a very young woman with long, light brown hair, smooth skin, wearing a wine-colored silk slip dress. I recognized this woman. My heart clenched. It was Nia Simmons, the new intern at Kellen's company. I had met her once about 3 months ago when I went to bring him lunch at the office. At that time, Kellen introduced her casually. This is Nia. She's an intern in my department. Nia had politely bowed to greet me. Hello, Ms. Zara. You're the best. With the delicious food you make, it's no wonder Boss Kellen praises you. In this 30-second video, Kellen was using a silver fork to carefully pick up a large piece of lobster and place it on Nia's plate. He was smiling with a sweetness and affection. His eyes were filled with a deep passion for Nia, a look I hadn't seen in a long time, maybe 5 years. Nia leaned back and laughed heartily. Then she quickly leaned over the table and used her finger to wipe a bit of sauce near Kellen's mouth. It was a gesture of blatant intimacy. Kellen didn't pull away. He took her hand, brought it to his lips, and kissed it. 30 seconds. The video ended. I dropped the phone on the cold granite floor. There was a dry clack. I had been betrayed. It wasn't a business partner. It wasn't a passing fling of a middle-aged man. It was a deep, secret relationship. He was using my money, the card I had given him, to rent a luxury restaurant and spoil a girl half my age. I felt pain in my chest, but strangely, I couldn't cry. The tears had dried up long ago. I felt nausea rising in my throat. I had given up my brilliant career at Ellison & Company Designs. I sacrificed my youth to be the solid foundation for this liar. I cared for my own garden, but now I discovered there was a venomous snake in it. The phone was still lying on the cold floor, the screen now off, but the 30-second video played over and over in my head, like a slow-motion movie I couldn't turn off. Kellen holding Nia's hand, the loving smile, the kiss on the back of her hand. Each scene was like a blade stabbing my already hardened heart. I slid down the cold wall to the floor. This mansion, this garden. For the last 10 years, I thought it was my heaven and the result of my sacrifice. It turned out to be just a gilded cage, and I was a bird who had locked herself in, while the owner went out to find another, younger bird. The phone rang. This time, the caller ID showed Jada Banks, attorney at law. I took a deep breath, trying to control the tremor running through my body. I picked up the phone and cleared my throat. I got it. Did you watch it? Jada's voice was urgent and full of rage. I didn't answer. My throat was tight. Bastard, Kellen! That damn bastard! Jada began cursing on the other end of the phone. She could never remain calm when she saw her friend hurting. That girl is Nia, the intern from his department. Her face looked familiar. What are you going to do now? Are you going home and tearing the place apart? Jada, I interrupted her. My voice was hoarse, but devoid of emotion, without tears. Hey! Jada stopped, surprised, probably by the excessively calm tone of my voice. Are you at the office now? Yeah, I'm here. I was waiting for your call. You are my lawyer, right? Of course I am. What are you saying? I'm your friend, and... I took a deep breath. The cold began to spread from my heart throughout my spine. I don't need you to be my friend. I need you to be my lawyer. You're an attorney, right? You need to be colder than I am. There was silence on the other end of the phone. I knew Jada had understood. She switched from the state of a furious friend to the state of a lawyer taking a case. Talk. I'm listening. Jada's voice had completely changed. It was sharp and professional. First thing. I got up and walked to the mahogany desk where the house documents, savings books, and deposits were kept. Prepare the procedures to immediately freeze all of our joint accounts, all of them. Freeze? Jada asked. Are you sure? If you freeze them, he'll realize it immediately and call you. He will realize it, I replied firmly. But it will be too late for him to do anything. This mansion is in both our names. The land my parents gave me when we got married also became joint marital property after the wedding. I can't allow that man to dispose of the assets. I noticed the change in the way I referred to him. My beloved husband Kellen had died in that 30-second video. What remained was just a stranger named Kellen Thorne. Understood, Jada replied. But to freeze joint accounts, we need a valid reason. You need to file for divorce for the court to admit the case, which would give us the legal basis to request an emergency freeze. No, I said firmly. Now is not the time for divorce. If I divorce now, I'll give him and that woman freedom. I need another reason. I don't want to go to court yet. I looked around the well-appointed room. Jada, if I report to the bank as the primary cardholder that I suspect my husband is committing fraud or using marital property for illegal purposes, would that be reason enough for the bank to temporarily freeze the accounts? Jada was silent for a few seconds, thinking. Legally, it's enough. The bank has the right to temporarily suspend to protect clients' assets, especially since you are a VIP client, but it will cause a scandal. I need a scandal, I said. I want him to realize that I'm not the idiot he manipulated for the last 10 years. I hung up the phone with Jada. I didn't allow myself a second of regret or fear. If pain doesn't kill you, it turns you into steel, and at that moment, I felt my heart had hardened more than stone. 10 years. I was a submissive wife. For 10 years, I stepped back, and this was the price I had to pay. I immediately looked up the phone number for Mr. Sterling, the Director of Preferred Customer Services at the Executive Trust. He had been the person managing my accounts for the last 5 years, always polite, with a kind voice, calling me for holidays or my birthday to invite me to investment programs, or just sending me a bouquet of flowers. Now was the time those preferential services were needed. It was almost 11 o'clock at night, but the phone rang only 3 times and was answered immediately on the other end. Mr. Sterling's voice was still kind. Ms. Zara, good evening. You're calling me at this hour. Is there an emergency? I interrupted him. My voice was surprisingly calm, but allowed no interruptions. Mr. Sterling, I'm calling for an emergency. I need you to handle 2 things immediately. First, immediately cancel the auxiliary credit card. The card number is... I clearly read the numbers of Kellen's platinum card, the numbers I had memorized from paying his statements every month. Cancel it right now? Mr. Sterling seemed shocked. Ma'am, this is a maximum limit VIP card, and Mr. Kellen is on a business trip. Could he have an emergency? I know, I cut him off, and I request the cancellation. I am the primary cardholder. I have the right. Cancel it right now. Yes, understood. I will take steps to block the card immediately. What is the second matter? His voice was already tense. The second matter is... I took a deep breath. I am Zara Ellison, co-owner of the joint accounts. I clearly gave him the numbers of the 3 joint accounts, including the checking account, the stock account, and the $60,000 joint deposit account. I request the bank apply an emergency measure to temporarily freeze all transactions on these accounts. This time, Mr. Sterling was silent for longer. I could hear him inhaling. Ms. Zara, could you tell me the reason? This matter is very complicated in terms of procedure, as Mr. Kellen is also a co-owner. The reason is, I emphasized every word, I, the principal owner of the majority of the assets, have sufficient reason to suspect that my husband, Mr. Kellen Thorne, is using the joint assets for illegal purposes and committing fraud, and he is currently showing signs of asset disposition. Fraud, illegal, asset disposition. I uttered these words clearly and concisely. They were the legal terms Jada had told me to use to force the bank to act in an emergency. The director on the other end was genuinely panicked. Ma'am, calm down. This matter is very serious. If you say so, in accordance with client protection regulations, I will immediately notify the system to temporarily block all online and over-the-counter transactions. Please come to the nearest branch tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning to sign the documentation. Fine. I will be there tomorrow at 8 in the morning, I replied concisely. I don't want a single dollar withdrawn from those accounts from this moment on. Do you understand? Yes. Understood. I will process it immediately. I hung up the phone. The room was instantly silent. I looked at my hand, which was still gripping the phone tightly. It wasn't trembling. For 10 years, I used these 2 hands to cook, wash clothes, plant flowers, and massage him when he said he was tired. Now, with these 2 hands, I was freezing everything that was his. I had cut his financial lifeline. I had cut off his retreat. The $4,500 appetizer at Sorrell's table was really expensive. Now it was time for me to serve the main course. I didn't know how Kellen would react when his platinum card was rejected, and he knew he couldn't access any account. But I knew he would call me soon, and I was ready. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat in the armchair on the veranda, looking at the orchid garden enveloped in darkness. My mind was just as dark. Every time I closed my eyes, the 30-second video appeared with cruel clarity. Kellen's kiss, Nia's laugh, and the $4,500 bill were a pantomime mocking the 10 years of my youth I had buried in this mansion. At 7:55 in the morning, I arrived at the door of Jada Banks's law office. My eyes were swollen from the sleepless night, and my makeup-free face was pale. I knew how miserable I looked. Jada came out of the conference room. She was wearing a tailored black suit, and her hair was pulled back into a high ponytail, which made her look sharp and authoritative. Her usual cheerful eyes had disappeared, replaced by repressed rage. She pushed a mug of hot coffee toward me without a word. "Drink it. You look like a dying ghost." I shook my head. My throat was dry. "I can't." "Did you finish everything?" Jada sat across from me, crossing her arms. "Finished. At 8 o'clock, I sent your confirmation documentation to the bank director. Everything is frozen. His platinum card is now officially a useless piece of plastic." For a moment, a wave of relief washed over me, but it didn't fill the emptiness inside. "Thank you." Jada looked at me with a penetrating gaze. "Zara, now answer me calmly. I ask you as your lawyer, what do you want? Just to give him a warning and vent your anger? Or do you want a divorce?" Divorce. Why did those two words sound so strange and painful? For 10 years, I gave up everything to be that man's wife, shelving my ambition at Ellison & Cumby Designs, and now, divorce. I truly don't know. When I fell silent, Jada sighed and stood up, pacing the room. Look at me. If you only want to give him a warning, frankly, Kellen will come back. He'll kneel, beg for forgiveness, and swear that heaven and earth will fall before he strays again. And then what? And then he'll go back to his old habits. But next time, he'll be more secretive, more cunning. You could live your whole life in doubt. I looked at Jada. The scene of the kiss at the restaurant appeared again. No, I can't take it anymore. Then it's divorce. Jada said it like a certainty, not a question. If you decide to divorce, you have to be ready to fight. Kellen is no fool. He and his family won't let you go easily with anything. They see you as a soft touch. I want a divorce. My voice suddenly became clear. But before I divorce, I want to know exactly what I had for the last 10 years and what he secretly took from me. Jada smiled. It was a cold, calculating smile. Good. This is the Zara Ellison I know. She pulled up a chair and took out a folder. I did a preliminary investigation. The largest asset is the Buckhead Mansion. It's in both your names. I nodded. The house was like my parents' wedding gift, who had put up the majority of the money. I froze the joint savings accounts and stock accounts, Jada continued. The problem is, he surely has personal accounts. Do you know his exact salary? I hesitated. He told me the company kept his salary and bonuses as external funds. Every month he only gave me $3,000 for household expenses, home management, and garden maintenance. Jada scoffed. It was a laugh of contempt. $3,000? You believe that, Zara? He's a high-level director in charge of multi-million-dollar projects, and his salary is only $3,000? You've been manipulated by him for 10 years. I lowered my head. I realized he hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, but he had also shamelessly deceived me financially. It's okay. We'll talk about that later. Jada patted me on the shoulder. Now, what are you going to do with the biggest asset? The mansion. I looked out the window of Jada's office at the busy stream of people below. That house, that garden, was the passion of my 10 years, but now it was nothing more than a luxurious cage full of lies. Sell it. My voice was dry. Put it at market price immediately, but we have to sell it fast before he reacts and can't dispose of more assets. Jada looked at me. The surprise turned into approval. Good. Very determined. I'll call a trusted real estate agent immediately. Now go home, eat something, and get some sleep. It looks like a storm is brewing. The storm Jada mentioned didn't wait. It arrived that very night, not the next day. I was sitting dazed on the steps next to the koi pond, watching the colorful fish swim. They lived in their little world, fed every day, and probably would never know what betrayal was. My phone, placed on the stone table, began to vibrate. The two words "beloved husband" appeared on the screen. A name I cherished 10 years ago, but now it felt like an ineffable mockery. I didn't answer the call. I simply sat and watched as the phone rang, cut off, and rang again, as if it were in a fit of rage. I ignored it and counted. 1 call, 2 calls, 10 calls. My phone rang again when I was discussing the quick sale of the mansion with Curtis, the real estate agent Jada had recommended to me. Curtis, a courteous middle-aged man, felt awkward. "Ms. Zara, you're not answering your phone? It seems urgent." I forced a smile. "Yes, it's probably another real estate ad. I block these types of numbers." I put the phone on silent, and we continued talking about prices and procedures. But in my mind, I knew the rage on the other end of the phone was growing. After Curtis left, the house was plunged into silence again. I turned on my phone to check. 66 missed calls. 66! What a beautiful number. I laughed, but I felt like crying. 66 missed calls. It wasn't because he missed me. It wasn't because he was worried about me. It was because he could no longer spend money. My fingers trembled as I checked the multitude of missed call alerts. He had been calling me like crazy for 2 hours. He had probably tried to take his mistress shopping after their extravagant $4,500 meal or pay for a five-star hotel stay. But he had failed. Right then, a new notification appeared. "You have one new voicemail message." My heart skipped a beat. What had to come came. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my hands from shaking, and brought the phone to my ear. I had to listen. I had to know his reaction. After a beep, Kellen's voice screamed. It was no longer the affectionate whisper or the calm of a high-level director. It was the howl of a wounded beast, not a hungry beast. "Zara Ellison, you crazy woman. Are you insane or not? How dare you cancel my card without my permission? Don't you know I'm entertaining an important client right now? Does it amuse you so much to humiliate me like this?" I closed my eyes. Entertaining an important client. Even in this moment, he was lying. The same old pretense. "What are you playing at? Activate the card again and put money in my accounts. Quick, stop making a fool of yourself. Answer the phone. Answer it now." A dry click, and the voicemail ended. Only a long beep remained, followed by the chilling silence of the room. I listened to the voicemail again. Once, twice, and 3 times. In that confused sound, I tried to search for a trace of regret or concern, but there was nothing. Only rage. He wasn't angry because I discovered his infidelity. He was angry because I cut off his cash flow. He was angry because I, the homemaker wife he had always despised, dared to humiliate him. What was I in his eyes? A luxury housekeeper or an ATM whose PIN he didn't know? The contempt I felt in that voice hurt me more than the 30-second video. My hands, which trembled when listening to the voicemail, were now completely still. I saved the recording without deleting it. I would need it later. Instead of pressing the redial button in a panic, I went to the WhatsApp application. I changed my profile picture. The photo of the two of us smiling happily on our 5th anniversary was deleted. In its place, I put a photo of myself alone next to a dendrobium orchid in full bloom. I was smiling in the picture. Then I didn't send a text message. I called him directly. He answered almost instantly on the other end of the phone, as if he had been glued to the phone waiting for my call. "Zara, you—" He tried to scream again, but before he could finish, I spoke. "Yes." My voice was clear, calm, and cold. My composure seemed to surprise him. "You? What are you playing at?" He stammered, and his rage seemed to falter. "What are you doing? Activate the accounts again. I'm really in trouble now." "I'm not playing with you either," I replied. I stood up and walked out onto the veranda, looking at the garden to which I had dedicated all my passion. "I'm not playing, Mr. Kellen. I'm doing adult work that I should have done a long time ago." "What? What is it?" He was completely confused. This wasn't the scenario he expected. He expected me to cry, scream with jealousy, and cause a scene, not this calm tone, as if speaking to a stranger. "I only have one question," I continued. "How is it that your ultra-secret geological survey in the Hamptons flew all the way to Buckhead, Atlanta?" There was silence on the other end of the phone. A chilling silence. I could hear his heavy breathing through the phone. He was trying to piece together the next lie. What nonsense are you saying?" His voice suddenly became lower. He wasn't yelling anymore. He was probing. The panic was evident. "Who? Who told you that nonsense?" "Ah," I prolonged my voice with sarcasm. "Perhaps your associate told me. The brown-haired associate in a red dress, sitting at Sorrel's table. Isn't it a little extravagant to entertain with a $4,500 meal? Were you spying on me?" His voice immediately became threatening. The rage of being caught replaced the confusion. "I don't care," I replied in a frosty voice. "Your job is to entertain well. Oh, and I forgot to inform you of one thing." "What thing?" he asked cautiously. "The mansion in Buckhead," I said, and I smiled. I knew he couldn't see me, but I felt a strange satisfaction. "I put it up for sale. The real estate agent called me this morning and said there are clients offering a good price. We'll probably sign the escrow contract this weekend." "What? This time he really screamed, a high-pitched shriek filled with extreme panic and rage. "Are you crazy, Zara Ellison? How dare you? That's my house. It's our house. You have no right to do that when I get back to Atlanta." "When you get back to Atlanta? You also had no right to rent a restaurant to spend our money on your mistress." I raised my voice. I no longer maintained composure. "I froze the accounts, canceled the platinum card, and the house will be sold soon. I hope your survey was pleasant. Now see how you get back to Atlanta." I didn't wait for him to continue ranting. I pressed the hang-up button with determination. I knew that Kellen, cornered, would call his ally, and his biggest ally was none other than his mother, Delilah Thorne, or Mama Delilah, as everyone called her. I was her daughter-in-law for 10 years. I understood this family very well. They had a strange sense of unity, especially when it came to protecting the interests of their precious golden boy. An hour after my tense phone call with Kellen, my phone rang again. This time the screen showed Mother. At one point I saved this name with all the respect of a new daughter-in-law. Now seeing it only gave me infinite fatigue. I took a deep breath, trying to sound as normal as possible, and answered, "Yes, Mother." Immediately, without a greeting, miserable crying poured into my ear through the phone. It sounded like the lament of a melodrama my mother-in-law loved to watch. "Oh my God! Zara, how could you do this to your husband? Will you only be satisfied when that child dies in the street?" I remained silent, letting her cry. This was an act I had seen for 10 years. Every time there was a small conflict in our marriage, she used tears to resolve it, and the result was always that I had to apologize, even if it wasn't my fault. Since I didn't react, her crying stopped as abruptly as turning off a radio. She switched to a sharp tone. "Are you going to keep playing dumb? Kellen just called me and he was crying. He said you froze his card and his accounts. What are you doing? Who do you think that child is suffering for? It's for this house. It's for you. How could you be such an unreasonable and inconsiderate woman?" Unreasonable. I repeated those 2 words. They were like a dull knife sticking in my ear. I laughed, a cold laugh. "Mother, am I the unreasonable one, or is Mr. Kellen the unreasonable one? He told me he went to the Hamptons to investigate, but he used my hard-earned $4,500 to dine at a luxury restaurant in Buckhead with another woman. In your eyes, he's suffering for me?" There was a chilling silence on the other end of the phone. I knew Kellen would never have told his mother these costly details, but I underestimated her. Mama Delilah was an experienced actress, and after a few seconds of surprise, she immediately changed the script. The crying returned, this time more miserable. "Oh, baby, I know you're losing, but honey, you have to understand men. Who can't fall into temptation? Maybe he made a temporary slip-up. If you cause a scandal like this, people will laugh at our family. You have to close the door and resolve it privately, sweetie. Patience is a woman's virtue. If you sell the house, where will the children grow up later? Think about it again." Slip up. I felt like crying, but I actually laughed. "Mother, where is there a $4,500 slip-up? I sacrificed my career at Ellison & Company Designs to serve at home, and he's using my money to entertain a young woman half my age." You. She stopped crying again and became vicious. "What are you saying so disrespectfully? How dare you talk to your mother-in-law like that?" "I'm not talking disrespectfully," I cut her off. My voice was now colder than ice. "I'm just telling the truth. I can no longer be the cash cow that the whole family mocks. I'm stopping this family's bleeding before your son uses my hard-earned money for another woman. I'm tired. I'm going to hang up." "How dare you?" she screamed. "If you don't reactivate the accounts now, don't blame me for becoming a wicked woman. I'm coming to your house right now." I didn't give her a chance to continue threatening. I hung up the phone with determination. I slumped onto the cold floor. Infidelity. That's how all men are. It turned out they all knew. They knew and defended him. They took my sacrifice for granted and considered his betrayal a small mistake. This whole family was rotten to the core. I no longer had any doubt. After the call with Mama Delilah, I sat dazed on the cold floor for hours. This whole family wasn't just defensive, they were accomplices. Together they put on a play, and I was the only stupid character who believed it was real. The pain of emotional betrayal had now turned into rage over the betrayal of intimacy and trust. For 10 years as a daughter-in-law, I considered Mama Delilah as my own mother, but what I got was a knife in the back. I didn't cry anymore. Maybe my tears dried up last night, or maybe the rage froze them. I only felt an infinite disgust. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes. I tried to swallow some grits, but my throat was dry. Mama Delilah's call last night was like a poison. It killed my last affection, my last illusion about the family I tried to cling to. As I sat soullessly in my orchid garden, my phone chimed. It was a WhatsApp message from an unknown number. I didn't want to open it, but I felt a premonition. I clicked. The WhatsApp account name was Baby Nia. The profile picture was a selfie of a young woman pouting, and the first message, without a greeting, was just a photo taken on a 5-star yacht. Behind her was the blue sea and the clear sky. Nia, Kellen's mistress, was wearing a red bikini, flaunting her youth and vitality. She was smiling with the smile of a winner, but what left me paralyzed was the clear image of Kellen reflected in her designer sunglasses. He was shirtless, holding a glass of wine, taking the photo. That man, my husband, the same one who yelled at me yesterday that he was humiliated because he had no money. The same one his mother cried about, saying he was suffering far away. It turned out they still had cash. They planned this trip meticulously. They were enjoying and celebrating their triumph with my hard-earned money. Cling. Another message arrived, still from her. Ms. Zara, Boss Kellen said you are a wise woman. He said now that you're older, you should know when to let go if you want to keep your last bit of dignity. I looked at the sentence. Older. Dignity. She was trying to provoke me. She wanted me to go crazy, to cause a scene, so she could have a pretext to play the role of the innocent victim harassed by the old wife. I looked at the photo for 10 seconds. There was no rage or jealousy, just a disgust like seeing a triumphant fly sitting on a plate of cold food. I didn't reply. I didn't curse. I did 2 things in silence. First, I saved the photo and her message. I sent them to a separate email folder titled Evidence. Second, I deleted the conversation and blocked her phone number. This childish provocation didn't deserve my attention. My fight wasn't a response on social media. My fight was a legal battle, a battle for the assets. I didn't need the dignity she offered me. I needed to recover everything that was mine. My fight was the asset, and the biggest asset was this mansion. The place where I was standing was the product of my 10 years of passion and my parents' wedding gift that cost almost their entire fortune. I couldn't let it fall into their hands. I called Curtis, the real estate agent Jada had recommended to me. Again, my voice was calm and clear. Mr. Curtis, I thought about it. I decided to sell urgently. Can you speed up the process to sell it quickly? Even if we have to lower the market price slightly. Curtis seemed surprised by my determination, but he quickly grasped the situation. Ms. Zara, don't worry. Your house is a rare gem. It's well located, and you, the landscape architect, designed the garden personally. The clients who saw the photos and 3D videos I took are all captivated. I smiled sadly. Captivated. I was the person who loved this house the most. Mr. Curtis, this orchid garden is the soul of the house. Tell the clients if they really want to buy the house, please keep it. It has to stay. Rest easy, Curtis replied. I will find you a worthy new owner. I thought a quick sale would take weeks, even months, but I was wrong. The power of money and the appeal of this house were much greater than I thought. Just 2 days later, Curtis called me again. He sounded euphoric, as if he had won the lottery. Ms. Zara, I have good news. Very good news. We have a client. It's not just a client. Curtis almost screamed into the phone. "It's a serious buyer. They are an African-American family who just relocated back to Atlanta, and they said they were speechless when they saw the photos and 3D videos I sent. They said the house has very good feng shui, and the orchid garden you designed is very beautiful. They said it's also very compatible with the lady's horoscope." I listened in silence. Curtis continued excitedly. "They don't want to come and see the house multiple times. They said they trust your design and want to put down the earnest money deposit immediately. They didn't haggle a single penny off the asking price. They only have one request." "What request?" I was anxious. "They said they want to buy your entire orchid garden." Curtis hesitated. "They said the house would lose its soul without that garden. They are willing to pay an additional $30,000 for all your precious orchids and the maintenance costs. They asked you not to take anything and to leave it as it is." $30,000. I stood there stunned. My 10 years of youth, the 10 years I gave up Ellison & Company Designs, the 10 years of watering, fertilizing, and pruning were valued at $30,000. It was ridiculous. But at the same time, I felt recognized. At least someone recognized the value of my silent sacrifice, even if they didn't know the story behind it. "Okay," my voice was choked. "Tell them. I accept. I will leave everything." "Excellent!" Curtis rejoiced. "So can we schedule the earnest money contract signing for this weekend? They want to pay 90% in cash all at once." I hung up the phone and looked at the garden. For 10 years, it was my joy and my pride and the gilded cage that trapped me. Now it was the conduit that freed me. Goodbye, my private Ellison & Company Designs. Thank you for giving me my first $30,000 to start a new life. The news that I froze the accounts and put the mansion up for sale spread miraculously faster than the wind. I assumed Kellen and his mother, in their rage, must have called everyone they knew to defame me, pressuring me to look like the cruel, insensitive wife. And the good people began to appear. The first call was from Chantel, Kellen's cousin. I always respected her for her sympathetic and gentle tone of voice. "Zara?" Her voice on the other end was full of awkwardness. "Your cousin heard your story. Kellen was wrong. He was very wrong. I gave him a severe scolding, but Zara—" She hesitated. I remained silent and waited. "You're a woman. You have to understand. Men sometimes can't avoid temptation when they're away. He made a mistake. If you cause a scandal like this, people will laugh at our family. Close the door and resolve it privately. Patience is more important than a husband for a woman. If you sell the house, where will the children grow up later? Think about it again." I hung up the phone. I didn't want to hear anything else. Patience. I was patient for 10 years. I was patient to the point of losing my career and my youth. And now I was supposed to be patient so he could give my money to his mistress. The second call was from Jamal, Kellen's best friend. This time it was the tone of an understanding man. "Zara, I gave that bastard Kellen a piece of my mind, but you're his wife. You have to understand his temperament. If you cut off all his money, how is he supposed to live and do business? He's trapped overseas, and if he does something impulsive, it's not good for you if he breaks down. You have to give him an out." An out. I felt like crying, but I laughed. Who gave me an out when I gave up Ellison & Company Designs to be a homemaker? Who gave me an out when he hugged a young mistress at Sorrell's table? They left me an out when his whole family defended him and treated me like a fool. I didn't respond to Jamal. I hung up again, and then came an avalanche of persuasive messages from college friends and the lady next door, who was worried because she hadn't seen me happy lately. Everyone advised me to calm down, to think about it again, to forgive. I was fed up. I was fed up with this hypocritical advice. They didn't live my life. They weren't in this house. They don't know what I endured for the last 10 years. They were just outside judging. I turned off my phone. I was too tired to talk to anyone else. I wanted to be alone. I walked into my study, a room I barely entered for the last 10 years. There was a thin layer of dust on the bookshelf, and there were my books on landscape architecture, bonsai art, and garden feng shui. And on the wall hung the first 3D design plan from Ellison & Company Designs, which I finished after working all night. It was once my pride and ambition. I sat down and turned on the computer. It had been too long since I touched the design software. My hands trembled a little, but my brain seemed to wake up. I opened a new file and began to draw. I drew a rooftop garden on a skyscraper, full of sun, with hanging orchids and a small koi pond. I was drawing my new life. Once finished, I opened WhatsApp without thinking. I published only one photo, the screenshot of the 3D design I had just finished, and wrote a single status: first sketch for a new life, relaunching Ellison & Company Designs. I turned my phone back on. There were no text messages or calls. For the first time in 24 hours, my phone was silent. The good people had shut up. They no longer advised me to forgive. They knew I wasn't playing. I wasn't just leaving Kellen. I was rebuilding my own empire. My WhatsApp post successfully silenced the persuasion of my friends and relatives, but it also became the fuse that ignited the dying powder keg of Kellen Thorne. He had now completely become that man, a stranger, an enemy in my mind. He had failed to use his mother to pressure me. He had failed to persuade me through his friends. Now he decided to confront me himself. He was surely still trapped overseas without a dime in his pocket. The rage of being cut off financially, combined with the shock that I dared to publicly sell the house and restart my career, turned him into a beast. The first message arrived from an unknown WhatsApp account. The name Falcon meant nothing to me, but I was sure it was him. I had already blocked his real WhatsApp account. Zara Ellison, you really are something. How dare you put my house up for sale? How dare you announce your new life? Who do you think you are to use that old Ellison & Company Designs name again? I read the message. Still doing rage. Still doing arrogance. He still thought I was the weak kitten from 10 years ago. He still thought I would be afraid of him. I didn't respond. I did one thing. I captured the screen and sent it to Jada. Additional evidence. Content of the threat saved. A few hours later, since I didn't respond, a second message arrived. This time the language was more vulgar and threatening. You're going to play dumb that you can sell the house without my signature? Don't even dream about it. When I get back to Atlanta, I won't forgive you. How dare you touch my assets? How dare you touch my mother? You'll see. I'll make you kneel and beg for my forgiveness. I read the message, but my heart didn't budge. I won't forgive you. I haven't been peaceful in the last 10 years. I lived in a false peace bought at the cost of my career and my pride. Now I prefer to be myself than a false peace. I captured the screen again and sent it to Jada. Evidence of threat. A day passed, and I didn't respond. His rage couldn't solve his hunger or turn into a plane ticket. He began to be afraid. A man accustomed to luxury and being served, now trapped in an unknown place without money. Rage couldn't overcome desperation. And around midnight, the third message arrived. This time, it wasn't from a fake account, but from an unknown phone number. He had probably borrowed it from someone. The tone had changed completely. Zara, baby. Those two words made me nauseous. The man who was threatening and growling moments ago now tried to put on a pathetic face. Zara, I was wrong. That girl misled me. I fell into her trap, believe me. As I read, I only laughed. Even in this moment, he was still blaming someone else. He still thought I was a fool who would easily fall for a few sweet words. The next message arrived immediately, as if he was afraid I wouldn't read it. Zara, I really have no money. I'm trapped here. I'm so hungry, honey. Don't you have even a little affection left for me? And then came the final blow I was sure of. It's 10 years. 10 years of marriage. How can you do this? 10 years. He dared to mention 10 years. The 10 years I buried my youth in the kitchen. The 10 years I gave up my ambition. The 10 years I worked like a slave for his family. He was trying to trade those 10 years for a plane ticket and forgiveness for his $4,500 meal with his mistress at a restaurant. Zara, Unlock the accounts so I can come back. Just give me money for a plane ticket. Let's come back and talk. I'll fix everything. I'll kick that girl out. I'll kneel and beg for your forgiveness. Zara. I looked at the phone screen. My heart was coldly hardened. Affection. The word sounded very cheap coming from his mouth. I captured the screen again and sent it to Jada. This time I titled it, Additional Evidence, Falsehood and Pleading. I turned off my phone and threw it on the velvet sofa. The room was so silent I could hear the beats of my own heart, a heavy, tired beat. Kellen's false plea didn't move me. It filled me with disgust. 10 years. He dared to mention the affection of 10 years? Yes, 10 years. I had to find out how he valued those 10 years. The WhatsApp post about Ellison & Co. Designs was a momentary impulse of rage, but now it reminded me who I was. I wasn't just a crying homemaker. I was an architect once, someone who worked with numbers and logic. Now it was time to use that logic to appraise this marriage. I walked into Kellen's study, a room I barely set foot in for 10 years. He always said it was his private space that I shouldn't touch. The smell of tobacco and old paper stung my nose. I turned on the light. Everything was artificially tidy. I opened the drawer of the mahogany desk where he kept important documents. Of course it was locked, but I was his wife for 10 years. I knew where he kept the spare key. Underneath the money plant in the corner of the room, the arrogance of a man who thought he was smart and thought his homemaker wife would never find it. I opened the drawer. The documents were neatly arranged in folders, contracts, insurance, and bank statements from numerous accounts whose existence I didn't even know. He told me that $3,000 a month was all the family expenses and that it was a sacrifice for me. It turned out it was just the tip of the iceberg. I sat on the floor and spread everything out, my eyes fixed on the numbers. My already cold heart now felt like someone was squeezing it. External expenses with 9 digits, cash withdrawals and representation expenses that occurred weekly, and here was his official salary account. The actual number was 5 times the number he told me. 5 times. I laughed, but I felt like crying. I lived in a gigantic deception. I wasn't his wife. I was a luxury housekeeper who was paid $3,000 a month to take care of this mansion and this garden. While he was building another home with our money, the money I saved by giving up Ellison & Co. Designs, the $4,500 meal at Sorrel's table wasn't a mistake. It was a habit, and it was just one of the countless representations I had no knowledge of. I was so foolish to fall for the solid foundation at home. I trusted the promise of, "You stay home, and I'll take care of everything in the world." It turned out he really was taking care of everything in his world, a world without me. I sat on the pile of documents until the first light of the sun shone through the crack in the door. The coffee had long since grown cold. I felt disgusted, but I couldn't stop. I had to know everything. And my eyes stopped on a transfer record. A recurring transfer record. It wasn't as big as the other external expenses, only $2,500, but it was as regular as a clock. My eyes, already dry from the sleepless night, felt stung by the letters. Internal transfer beneficiary, Ms. Odessa Jones. Amount $2,500. Exactly the same amount he gave me every month to take care of this mansion, the bills, the maid's expenses, and the garden maintenance. He was transferring the exact same amount to another woman named Ms. Odessa Jones. The instinct of a newly betrayed woman whispered to me that this wasn't a simple issue. With trembling hands, I moved the mouse and checked the transaction history. June 15th, May 15th, April 15th. I scrolled back, and my heart began to pound wildly. This wasn't a recent expense. It had been continuous. I kept scrolling. My mind grew colder and colder. 2 years. Oh my God, for 2 years without fail, exactly $2,500 transferred on the 15th of every month. I quickly pulled out the calculator and typed $2,500 multiplied by 24 months. $72,000. $72,000. Who was I? Who was Ms. Odessa Jones? I rummaged through my memories. Ms. Odessa Jones, a completely unknown name, not my relative, much less Kellen's. I was sure no one transfers $2,500 to a friend every month for 2 years. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't a mistake, as Mama Delilah said. This wasn't infidelity. This was a plan, a systematic, long-term plan. He wasn't just having an affair. He was maintaining another woman. He was investing our money, the hard-earned money I saved by giving up Ellison & Company Designs, in another woman. This betrayal was much crueler than the 30-second video. The kiss at Sorrel's table could be lust, but $72,000 transferred over 2 years was calculation, intentional deception, and a total disregard for me. Who did they think I was? An idiot? An ATM that was a burden to her husband at home? I didn't cry. I couldn't cry anymore. I only felt rage, a cold rage that surged from the depths of my heart. This rage was enough to burn down these 10 years of false marriage. I didn't call Kellen. I didn't send insulting text messages. I did one thing. I captured the screen of all the transaction records to Ms. Odessa Jones, from the first month to the last. I captured the total number, $72,000. I sent everything to Jada with a single line of message. Jada, investigate what kind of monster Ms. Odessa Jones is and what that man maintained with my $72,000 for the last 2 years. I sent the message. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. I knew Jada was an early riser who exercised, even if she worked all night. I didn't expect an immediate answer. I had to shower. My body smelled of hatred and cold sweat from the sleepless night. I stood under the shower. The hot water poured over my body, but I didn't feel warm, just cold, cold to the bone. $72,000, the number kept swirling in my head. He took it from me. He took $72,000 from us. For 10 years living at home, I was frugal. I refused to buy designer bags. I refused luxury trips because he said we had to save for the future. It turned out the future he mentioned was his future with another woman. As soon as I came out of the bathroom with a towel around my hair, my phone rang loudly. It was a call from Jada. Her voice on the other end wasn't that of a lawyer, but of a friend so furious she was losing control. "Are you sitting or standing right now?" Jada's voice was trembling. "Standing. Tell me, do you have the results?" I replied calmly, holding back my wildly beating heart. "Sit down." Jada almost yelled through the phone. "Sit down right now, Ms. Odessa Jones." Jada took a deep breath as if trying to restrain a profanity. 60 years old, from the outskirts of Atlanta, no stable employment. 60 years old. I felt more confused. Kellen would never do that. "Who is she?" My voice cracked. Jada was silent for a few seconds, and then said every word clearly, as if she feared I wouldn't hear her. "Zara, she is Nia's mother. Nia Simmons' mother." Nia's mother. My phone fell, landing silently on the wool rug, but something exploded in my ears. The mother of Nia, the mother of the 20-year-old intern, the mother of the woman in the 30-second video. $72,000, $2,500 a month to the mistress's mother. I could no longer feel what my emotions were. It wasn't pain, it was disgust, a nauseating disgust. He wasn't just having an affair. He wasn't just making a mistake. He was being a son to his mistress's mother with my money. With my money. I picked up the phone. Jada was still yelling on the other end. "Do you understand what I'm saying? That bastard, that son of a, was maintaining not only his mistress, but the whole family. Do you understand? $2,500 a month. That old woman was living like a queen in the county. He was using your hard-earned money, the money you sacrificed from Ellison & Company Designs, to support another family. Zara, are you listening to me?" "I'm listening." My voice was strangely calm. "I'm listening, and I understand everything." "What do you understand?" Jada stopped, surprised by my composure. I understand. I stood up and walked to the closet. He hasn't been my husband for a long time. He's been a thief and a con artist. When the truth finally comes out, no matter how cruel, people no longer feel pain. Only rage and a single goal remain. Jada, I cut her off, prepare the divorce papers. But I don't just want a divorce. I don't just want half the assets. I want it all. I'll make him pay for these 10 years of youth, principal plus interest. I arrived at Jada's office at 9 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't the soulless, swollen-eyed woman of a few days ago. I wore the white suit I wore to defend the first Ellison & Company Designs project. My hair was tied back, and my makeup was carefully applied. I was here not as a betrayed wife, but as a business partner coming to discuss an important deal. Jada looked at me, and her gaze shifted from surprise to respect. You really are incredible. I was worried you would lock yourself in the house to cry or do something foolish. I smiled coldly. Cry, Jada? Tears can't recover $72,000. Good. Jada hit the desk with a pen. Then let's get to work. With this $72,000 evidence, we can not only file for divorce, but also for disposition of marital assets and fraud during the marriage. If we go to trial, you will definitely get the majority of the assets. He won't be able to hold his head up. You just have to sign here. Jada slid a folder towards me. Just as I was about to take the pen, Jada suddenly said, "Wait, why?" I looked at her. "No, it's nothing." Jada didn't look at me. She frowned, her eyes fixed on her computer screen. I asked my secretary to re-verify the mansion's information in the property register for your urgent sale procedure. Zara. Jada's voice suddenly became serious. Come see this. A premonition, worse than when I heard Ms. Odessa Jones's name, awoke in my heart. I walked over to Jada's computer screen. It was the information of my house's deed of title. Look at this. Jada pointed to the small print in the notes section. Your house is mortgaged. Mortgaged, I repeated mechanically. It doesn't make sense. I didn't sign any document. This house is my parents' money. It's mortgaged. Jada's voice was like a wedge. And not for a small amount. They mortgaged it to borrow $650,000. $650,000. If $72,000 was a slap, $650,000 was a bullet that hit me directly in the head. No, it's not possible, I screamed. My composure that I worked so hard to build completely collapsed. Jada, $650,000 requires my signature. I am a co-owner. Never. Calm down. Jada grabbed my shoulder and shook me hard. Listen to me. Look at the date of the mortgage. I squinted and checked the date. 6 months ago, exactly 6 months ago, Jada said, her voice full of rage. Remember, did you sign any strange documents 6 months ago? 6 months ago, my head was spinning. 6 months ago. Yes. At that time, Kellen told me the company needed a large capital for an important project. He said it was a golden opportunity. He brought a thick folder of documents and told me to sign quickly, saying they were internal documents and his boss was waiting. Oh my God, I collapsed. I signed. He said it was an internal guarantee document. He pointed to where to sign. I didn't read. Jada. Oh, Jada. Jada hit the desk with her fist. The boom sound startled me. Did that bastard trick you? Or did he forge your signature? Or did he trick you into signing a power of attorney or a mortgage consent? He took $650,000 from my parents' house. I didn't listen to anything else. $72,000 he used to maintain his mistress. And this $650,000? Where did the $650,000 go? Ultra-secret survey trip to the Hamptons. Project. Suddenly, I understood everything. He didn't go to investigate. He went to liberate that $650,000. He was planning to escape. He was going to leave with $650,000 and his young mistress, leaving me with a foreclosed house and a gigantic debt. The $4,500 meal at Sorel's table was just the celebration of his successful deal. Zara. Jada's voice brought me back to reality. Her face was pale, but her eyes were burning. Listen to me carefully. This is no longer just a divorce. This is no longer a civil case. She grabbed my hand tightly, emphasizing every word. This is a crime. Your husband is a criminal. Fraud and embezzlement. I looked at Jada. The tears had dried up. The pain was gone and only a cold void remained. Yes, I said in an eerily calm voice. What should I do with a criminal, Jada? What is the procedure for a criminal complaint? Jada's voice echoed in the quiet office. Criminal, fraud, penal. Every word was like a hammer blow to my chest. $650,000. The number was so large, it felt abstract. It was no longer money, it was an abyss. I must have staggered. Jada quickly held me and sat me down in a chair. Zara, are you listening to me? You have to calm down. Now is not the time to faint. Calm down. How could I calm down? 6 months ago. I remembered it vividly. Kellen came home, his face full of excitement. He talked about a golden opportunity, an internal investment project the company only offered to executives. He said it was the chance to change our lives, and that I would never have to worry about anything again. He brought a thick folder full of technical jargon I didn't understand. He flipped through the pages, pointing to an X. He said, "Sign quickly. My boss is waiting. It's just an internal guarantee procedure. We have to trust each other as a couple, right? Don't you trust me?" I trusted him. I trusted him as I had for the last 10 years. I signed without reading a word. I signed the power of attorney or the mortgage consent. I signed the death sentence of my marriage and my assets. How stupid I was. The emotional betrayal hurt. But this financial deception, this cold calculation to embezzle using my absolute trust, filled me with disgust. He wasn't just a bad husband, he was a professional con artist. Jada. I looked at her, and my voice was dry. $72,000 he used to maintain his mistress. And this $650,000? What was he going to do with this $650,000? Jada looked at me. Her eyes were full of pity, but also of firmness. You still don't know. He conned you. He used your parents' house, your assets, to borrow $650,000. He was preparing his life. He was going to leave with that $650,000 and his mistress, leaving you with a gigantic debt and a house that would be foreclosed on by the bank. I felt my heart stop. Sell the house. Now, selling this house wasn't revenge, nor was it even to stop the bleeding of marital assets. It was an order. I had to sell this house to the Atlanta client. I needed the 90% cash they promised. I needed that money not to get rich, but to immediately pay the illegal $650,000 debt to the bank. If I didn't pay, the bank would foreclose, and I, as the co-owner, the person who signed under deception, would be the first to be responsible. I would lose everything. I would lose the house, my parents' money, and I would be in debt for life. Kellen Thorne. He didn't just want to leave me. He wanted to destroy me. He wanted to bury me alive in that debt and shame. Zara, Jada grabbed my hand tightly. Listen to me. This fight has changed. It's no longer just a simple civil divorce case. It's a criminal case. You are no longer just a wife demanding justice, but a victim who has to fight for her own freedom. I left Jada's office as if my feet weren't touching the ground. I don't know how I drove back to the mansion. Everything around me seemed enveloped in a dense fog. The outside world was still noisy, the cars were still busy, but I was trapped in a glass cage, without sound, without emotion. I slumped onto the steps outside the orchid garden. The $30,000 garden, the garden I was once proud of. Now it was the only thing that could save me. Everything suddenly became clear, cruelly clear. I connected all the dots. 6 months ago, he tricked me into signing the mortgage documents, and the bank disbursed $650,000. He had the money, a gigantic amount, enough to start a new life. He started spending more shamelessly. This business trip was not a sudden trip. It was scheduled. The 15-day ultra-secret geological survey trip to the Hamptons was a lie, a carefully prepared lie to give him enough time to free up the rest of the money and disappear. That he took his mistress was not because she was the reason. She was just the prize he gave himself after a successful fraudulent deal and the $4,500 meal at Sorrel's table. Oh my God, I let out a dry laugh. It wasn't a client entertainment meal, nor an error meal. It was a celebration. Kellen Thorne was celebrating with my money in my house, the fact that he had just conned me out of $650,000. He celebrated his imminent escape. He celebrated that I was the fool who didn't know I would soon be submerged in a gigantic debt. His contempt, his cruelty, went beyond the limits of infidelity. This was calculated wickedness. He didn't just want my money, he wanted to destroy me. He wanted me to never hold my head up, to live forever in debt and shame. I immediately took my phone. My hands no longer trembled. They were cold and firm. I called Curtis, the real estate agent. "Mr. Curtis," my voice was calm. "This is Zara. Cancel all other house showings. I have decided. I am selling it to the Atlanta client. Tell them I accept all their conditions. I want to sign the earnest money contract this weekend. I need the cash. The sooner the better." Curtis seemed surprised by my determination, but he quickly grasped the situation. "Fantastic, ma'am. I'll call those folks immediately. They'll be thrilled to hear this." I hung up the phone. I had no other choice. I had to sell. Selling this house was not for the division of divorce marital assets. It was to save my own life. He wanted to bury me alive, but he didn't know. I was the seed, and my Ellison & Cumble designs would definitely rise from these ashes. I sat in the mansion, now an asset waiting to be sold. I turned off my phone. I didn't want to hear any more threats or false pleas from Kellen. I didn't want to hear his mother's calculated crying. I needed silence. In that silence, I asked myself, what is the man who just conned $650,000 and is enjoying his business trip with his mistress doing now? I couldn't see him, but later, when everything came to light, I knew that even what I imagined was nothing compared to the cruelty of the real facts. While I was sitting here struggling with a $650,000 debt, Kellen and Naya were on a 5-star yacht somewhere in the Caribbean. They were living the extravagant and frivolous life he once despised. They drank the most expensive wine, ate the food I never dared to dream of. They spent money like water. They spent my money. The $72,000 he set aside to be a son to Nia's mother. And probably part of the $650,000 was also spent on shopping. Nia transformed from an intern to a queen, dressed in designer clothes with bags that cost thousands of dollars, but all parties come to an end. My phone call, the freezing of the accounts, the cancellation of the platinum card were like throwing a bucket of cold water on their imperial dream. The platinum card, the symbol of Kellen's power, was suddenly rejected when he tried to pay the yacht rental the next day. He was paralyzed. He took out his second and third card, but all the joint accounts were frozen. His rage, the one that manifested in his 66 missed calls, was real. He couldn't believe that his docile wife at home dared to cut his lifeline. And the fight began. Not my fight, but theirs. I could imagine how Nia, the young woman accustomed to wealth and luxury, would react when her gold mine suddenly ran out. The sweet voice of Boss Kellen surely turned into a sharp scream. "You promised you could take care of everything. You said the world would be mine if I stayed by your side. And now what? The cards don't work. Who's going to pay the hotel bill? You're a con artist." And Kellen, the patriarchal man who always considered himself a king, how could he endure that humiliation? Financially betrayed by his wife and now bitten by his mistress, I imagined him yelling as loud as he yelled at me on the phone, "Shut up! If you hadn't demanded that $2,000 bag, we would have money for a plane ticket. You're a parasite who only knows how to spend money." Their love, built on my betrayal and my money, was more fragile than seafoam. When the money was gone, only hatred and the fact of tearing each other apart remained. The $4,500 party at Sorrell's table was their highlight, and this was the hell they created for themselves. I lived in silence for 2 days. In those 2 days, I organized all the Ellison & Cumby Designs documents, the old blueprints, the incomplete contracts. I cleaned every trophy, every thank you plaque that was gathering dust. I realized that in 10 years, I didn't just lose money. I lost myself. I didn't hear anything from Kellen. He was silent, and Mama Delilah was silent too. I assumed they were preparing a bigger storm. On the third day, while I was preparing the documentation for the house sale contract this weekend, my phone chimed. I was so tired of the threats or pleas, but this time it wasn't from Kellen. It was a WhatsApp message from an unknown number. The account name was Baby Nia. I frowned. Her again. Last time it was a provocative photo in a bikini. And now what? She had found a solution with Kellen and wanted to show off that they were still happy. My first instinct was to block her like last time. I didn't want to get involved with this trash, but something urged me. I opened the message. It wasn't a photo or a provocation. It was just 3 words sent with a trembling voice. Ms. Zara, save me. I was stunned. Save me? What game was she playing now? I didn't respond. I didn't believe a single tear from her. A person who willingly accepted $72,000 in support for her mother from another woman's husband was capable of anything. A few minutes later, since I didn't respond, an avalanche of messages arrived. This time, it was a long paragraph, as if she had written it beforehand and was just waiting to send it. Ma'am, I was wrong. I don't dare ask for your forgiveness. Just save me. That man tricked me. Boss Kellen is not human. He's a demon. As I read, I only laughed. Demon, a few days ago. Wasn't the sophisticated Boss Kellen her gold mine who provided her with everything to show off to the world? He ran out of money. That was the next message. You blocked the cards and he doesn't have a dime. He hit me. He locked me in the hotel. He said if I didn't get him money, he would sell me. Ma'am, I'm so scared I escaped. I'm at the airport now. I don't have a dime. I'm using borrowed Wi-Fi to send you messages. I wasn't a psychologist, but I could reconstruct the complete picture. The fight on the yacht ended. Kellen, without a dime, revealed his true nature. He was no longer a sophisticated gentleman, but a cornered tyrant, a bully. And Nia realized she had gambled in the wrong place. She didn't love Kellen. She loved his money. When the money ran out, she had to flee. She was fleeing not only from Kellen, but from the chaos she helped create. But why was she messaging me? The last message explained everything. Ma'am, I know you're going to sue him. I have what you need. I have evidence. Evidence that will make that man unable to hold his head up. I can help you. I only ask. Forgive me for the money we received from him. My mother's sin, I will pay. I promise. I just want to live in peace. I looked at the phrase, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. She wasn't my friend. She was a rat fleeing a sinking ship looking for a new ship to cling to, selling her former companion for a low price. She thought she could use me. She didn't know. I also needed a tool, just like her. I wrote. It was the first time I replied to her. My voice must have been as cold as ice. What airport are you at now? The answer was instantaneous. I'm still trapped overseas. I just escaped to the airport. I don't care where you are, I wrote. I also don't care if he hit you. It's your problem and his. But I'm interested in the evidence you mentioned. Yes, it's true. They are double contracts, tax evasion documents. He said it was his biggest secret and that's how he got rich. He said if it became known, he would go to jail. Tax evasion, double contracts. A strange emotion awoke in my heart. It turned out that the empire he built, the facade of the sophisticated and rich director, was built on the foundations of a crime. Monday at 3 p.m, my lawyer's office. Address 32 Peachtree Street. Get back to Atlanta however you can. Bring the evidence. We will talk. I will go alone. I hung up without waiting for her reply. I knew she would cling to this as her last lifeline. She would still think I was stupid, that I still loved him and wanted to talk privately. She would come with the last hope of being able to reverse the situation with crocodile tears. She didn't know she was walking straight into her own final judgment. 9 o'clock in the morning. Jada's office today was different. The air was tense and taut like a guitar string. I chose a black suit instead of white. I wanted to wear the color of the end. I was sitting there with Jada beside me. In front of us, instead of an empty chair, was the attorney for the investment fund, Mr. Atticus Hayes. He had a solemn face and piercing eyes. Kellen arrived 5 minutes late. He opened the door, not guided by Jada's secretary, but walking in himself, as if it were still the office of someone he knew. But upon seeing me, seeing Jada, and especially seeing Mr. Hayes, he stopped. His appearance was miserable. His beard was neglected, his hair greasy, his designer suit was wrinkled, and he smelled of fear and sweat. He was emaciated, and his eyes were bloodshot and sunken. "Zara, baby." He tried to put on a pitiful voice. He tried to approach me. "Sit down," Jada growled, pointing to the only empty chair in the middle of the room that looked like a seat for the accused. Kellen stopped. He looked at me, looked at Mr. Hayes. He began to realize something was wrong. He pulled the chair over awkwardly and sat down. "Mr. Kellen Thorne, good morning." Jada began to speak. Her voice was devoid of emotion. It was pure lawyer voice. "Today we are here to invite Mr. Kellen Thorne not to talk about 10 years of affection." Jada pressed the remote control, and the large screen on the wall turned on. Let's get straight to the point. The first image. The 30-second video at Sorrell's table. The scene where he kissed Nia. Kellen closed his eyes and gritted his teeth. This is mine. Next. Jada pressed the remote control. The bikini photo on the yacht with Nia's provocative message. Silence. Jada cut him off. Just look at the screen. She moved to the next slide. The bank statement. The words, Ms. Odessa Jones, $2,500 were circled in red. A table calculating the total of $72,000. Kellen began to pale. Next, the screen changed to the mortgage contract for the mansion, the number $650,000 enlarged, and next to it, the result of the signature evaluation. The signature of Ms. Zara Ellison is concluded to have been inserted into the document in a non-complete mental state or falsified. "It's not nonsense!" Kellen began to scream. "You signed it yourself! He still tried to lie. I opened my mouth. It was the first time since he entered. My voice was calm, but my eyes were fixed on him. "You said it was an internal guarantee document, didn't you?" Kellen was speechless. He looked at me as if he had seen a ghost. And finally, Jada pressed the last slide. The folder of double contracts that Nia brought. The difference in amounts, the signatures, the stamps. This time Kellen didn't scream. He just sat there panting. Sweat was pouring down. He knew there was no way to deny it. At that moment, Mr. Hayes, the attorney for J Capital, opened his mouth. His voice was low and firm. "Mr. Kellen Thorne, I represent the J Capital Investment Fund. We obtained all these documents. We officially report Mr. Kellen Thorne for commercial fraud and embezzlement of funds. He has deceived us for 5 years." "No, Mr. Hayes, I was deceived. That girl, Nia, she seduced me." Kellen turned to me. He tried to crawl out of the chair and kneel. "Zara, save me. Tell Mr. Hayes, save me. 10 years. It's 10 years. I looked at him. The man I once loved was crawling at my feet like a miserable dog. My heart didn't budge. There was no pity or satisfaction, just emptiness. "Mr. Kellen," I said, "you don't need to beg me or Mr. Hayes. The person you have to talk to is not us." Kellen was left with a panicked expression. Just then, the conference room door opened. 2 uniformed men and 2 plainclothes men entered. "Mr. Kellen Thorne, good afternoon," one of the plainclothes men who looked like the commander said, showing his identification. "We are the Economic Crimes Unit. We received a report for your tax evasion and fraud. Accompany us to headquarters for questioning." Kellen was petrified. He looked at the 2 police officers and then looked at me. The gaze was no longer one of pleading. It was one of hatred. Extreme hatred. But it was too late. 2 cold silver handcuffs closed around his hands. He was led away, passing by me. My 10 years of marriage, my 10 years of youth, my Ellison & Co. designs that I had given up, officially concluded with the dry clack of the handcuffs. 6 months later, I heard about his news through Jada. The trial was held behind closed doors, but the result was known to everyone. Kellen Thorne was sentenced to a total of 18 years for the charges of fraud for embezzling $650,000 from me, fraud against J Capital, and tax evasion for an especially large amount. 18 years for a life of greed and falsehood. His mother, Mama Delilah, could not overcome the shock of her golden son's conviction. She suffered a stroke and was paralyzed on one side. I heard from old neighbors that she was now bedridden, crying and cursing. But no one cared anymore. That was probably the karma she deserved for defending her son's crimes. Nia, due to her honest confession, the delivery of evidence, and her proactive effort to repair the damage by returning the entire $72,000 that Kellen gave her mother for support, received a suspended sentence for complicity and consumption of goods obtained through crime. It is said she disappeared from the city and returned to her hometown to live another life. I no longer felt hatred, nor did I feel satisfaction. I simply felt that everything had returned to its course. You reap what you sow. I was standing in my new office. It wasn't a rental apartment. It was the official office of Ellison & Company Designs. It wasn't large, a small loft in an old building, but it was full of sun. The walls were covered with design blueprints. They had been forgotten for 10 years, but my skills hadn't disappeared. They were like a seed, and they were germinating under the rubble of the marriage. Now that the storm had passed, they began to sprout. Jada walked in with 2 mugs of coffee in her hand. "What's wrong? Did you just get the landscape design contract for the entire new city across the river? Why are you so serious?" I smiled and took the coffee. I was thinking about what kind of trees to use for the central lake, Phalaenopsis orchids or dendrobiums. Jada laughed heartily. "Orchids again! But seeing you now makes me feel like this is the Zara Ellison I knew." I looked out the window. The sky was very blue today. People were still busy, but my heart was surprisingly at peace. I sold my $30,000 orchid garden, but I recovered my entire heaven. I didn't need to do any charitable work to prove I was fine. I just had to live well and do my job well. For 10 years as a homemaker, I learned to care for a garden. Now I would use that skill to care for my life and make the lives of other people more beautiful. I took a deep breath. The smell of coffee, paper, and the smell of freedom. My true life had just begun. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.